Hey everybody, this is Sam Wintoon talking about the arguments for the existence of God. This video is supplementary to both the Aquinas and Augustine video in that it's going to discuss the major types of arguments for God, some of the language that's used quite often in those videos. So, our three types of arguments for the existence of God are cosmological, teleological, and ontological. The first category, cosmological arguments, are differentiated from the other two in that they are primarily empirical or a posteriori, in that they depend upon experience as being the where the vast amount of the proof is going to come from. For instance, cosmological arguments are built upon facts about the universe, typically things that are experienced. That's why it's called the cosmological argument, in that it is facts about the cosmos, typically. For instance, the universe exists, or the universe moves, or the universe changes. From these conditions, the cosmological argument intends to entail that a God must exist, typically because those things would only be that way if a God existed to create them in such a way. An example of this would be Aquinas' first mover. The second type of argument we're dealing with is an ontological argument, in that it is a priori as opposed to being empirical. The being of God is typically the study of an ontological argument, in that ontology means the study of being. For instance, God as a perfect being or God as a necessary being, and from those qualities is derived the necessary existence of God, and of course if the necessary exists, he also actually exists, securing the existence of God. An example of this would be Anselm's ontological argument. The final type of argument that we have for the existence of God is a teleological, which is not necessarily mentioned a lot in the videos, with the exception of Aquinas' final argument, but we wanted to cover it anyways. The teleological argument bases itself upon an argument from the purpose of the universe. Telos means ends or purpose in kind of a loose fashion. The teleological argument typically deals with things such as the complexity of life, harmony, beauty, detail, things like that. Another example of this argument, other than Aquinas' fifth way, would be the watchmaker. The watchmaker argument asserts that if a man were walking in the forest, I guess it doesn't have to be a man, but if a person were walking in the forest and they saw a watch on the ground and picked it up, they wouldn't think, oh, that's curious that those materials arrange themselves in that specific fashion as to create a functional watch. They would assume that someone made the watch and left it there. In the same way, we can assume that, according to the watchmaker argument, the universe itself is so detail-oriented and functional and created in such a complex way that it would be more likely to assume that the universe came to existence by being created than it would out of random chance. Additionally, another teleological argument that is quite popular is the fine-tuning argument, which scientifically goes over my head, but the basic premise is that there are very, very, very discrete complex variables that are necessary for there to be existence in the way that we exist. For instance, if gravity functioned between atoms in a slightly stronger or slightly weaker fashion, atoms couldn't come together to form complex objects, and then there wouldn't be existence necessarily. Given these types of arguments, they take the complexity or the detail of life and existence, and from that presume that something must have made them, because probabilistically it's more likely that a God created this finely tuned world than it would be for it to happen by chance. Alright, and those are the three types of arguments for the existence of God. Thanks for listening.